Right now at 6, KGW investigates the use of tear gas at Portland's ICE building.
It's totally unprofessional.
How officers may have violated federal policy. Plus,
I'm glad he's being locked away, but I don't think he's being locked away for a long enough time.
A former fire chief sentenced for murdering his wife apologizes, but not for killing her. And callers to Washington's Department of Licensing pressed 2 for Spanish and got this.
Thank you for calling the Department of Licensing Customer Support Center.
How the DOL is responding tonight. But our top story here at 6, explosions, smoke, and tear gas. Thank you for joining us. I'm Christine Pitawanich. KGW investigators analyzed more than 200 videos of federal officers using crowd control munitions, including tear gas, outside the ICE building. The videos raise serious questions about whether that force crossed the line. Investigative reporter Kyle Laboshi here now in studio with the details. Kyle.
This story comes at an important time. On Monday, a 3-day hearing begins in federal court to determine whether a preliminary injunction should restrict federal agents from using tear gas and other less lethal munitions. The hearing follows an earlier ruling when a federal judge temporarily barred officers at the Portland ICE facility from using crowd control weapons. Explosions, flashbangs, and clouds of smoke. On January 31st, federal agents fired tear gas at a crowd of protesters outside the ICE building in Portland. The use of chemical munitions stoked public outrage and triggered backlash from local officials, in part because of who was affected: neighbors, families, and children. But the incident also raised broader questions about use of force. KGW analyzed more than 200 video clips showing federal officers confronting protesters outside Portland's ICE building since last summer. The videos present a detailed picture of how crowd control munitions are being misused, causing injuries and inflaming tensions even more. It's Saturday afternoon, January 31st. Roughly 1,000 protesters at a union-organized rally marched toward the ICE building in Portland's South Waterfront. The crowd chants. Most stay on the street. A few cross ICE's property line. At 4:32, the front gate opens, and federal officers in tactical gear push toward the crowd. The protesters retreat. 5 seconds later, officers fire less lethal. Agents toss smoke and chemical irritants into the crowd.
It's totally unprofessional.
Gil Kurlikowski is former head of U.S. Customs and Border Protection.
It's totally outside the standards that any police department or sheriff's department would use in managing a crowd.
Video shows federal agents shoot one man at close range.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Another round explodes at head level, searing a hole in an American flag.
Oh my God!
That was clearly some type of explosive device that detonated at head level.
Spencer Fomby is a police instructor in crowd control.
Any officer who is trained to use less lethal impact munitions is trained to avoid the head, neck, groin, or spine.
Our review found since last summer, federal officers have repeatedly violated this guideline, shooting one protester in the head and aiming at others above the waist.
Aim for leg, aim for leg.
Back to January 31st, where the street is filled with heavy smoke. The crowd surges away from the building. There's no guidance on where to go or how to escape. Officers continue to fire less lethal, even though the crowd has largely dispersed.
You don't want to use force to punish people.
Franz Schaining is a commander with Portland Police.
I think what we have seen is uses of force by federal agencies down there that are disproportionate to the criminal behavior we're seeing.
The Department of Homeland Security's use of force policy says less lethal force can only be used when no reasonably effective, safe, and feasible alternative exists, and the level of force must be objectively reasonable. But our analysis shows federal agents repeatedly cross those lines. Officers have been filmed shooting pepper spray directly into the faces of people who do not appear to be violent or threatening, and tear gas has been used against peaceful protesters time and time again. Independent guidelines from the policy group Police Executive Research Forum are clear. These weapons should not be used against peaceful demonstrators, even if demonstrators are engaging in minor acts of civil disobedience, like occupying a park or blocking a street. On January 31st, we see federal officers firing pepper balls from the rooftop at distance, increasing the chance of hitting unintended targets. Video also shows federal officers lobbing tear gas far into the crowd, away from the building they're protecting. At one point, less lethal is launched from the top of the ICE office down the street.
It's not effective to do it that way.
It doesn't really make sense to launch munitions behind the crowd that you want to disperse.
If you throw it behind them, aren't you pushing them more toward your own building?
In a statement, DHS said its officers followed their training and used the minimum amount of force necessary to protect themselves, the public, and federal property. By 4:36, federal officers retreat inside the ICE building. Behind them, tear gas hangs in the air. Spent munitions cover the street. Federal policy says force should be a last resort. The video shows it's often the first response.
Wow, all that video is just riveting. Such an important report. But also, Kyle, a new city law went into effect today meant to stop federal agents from using things like tear gas near the ICE buildings. So what can you tell us about that?
It really cracks down on the property owner. In this case, the owner of the ICE building can be fined if federal agents use chemical munitions, tear gas, that impact safety or nearby residents. Fines begin at $5,000 for the first offense and increase for repeated violations.
Wow, appreciate your reporting and looking into all of those videos, 200 of them. Kyle Aboshi, thank you. Well, in your headlines, a judge sentenced a man to more than 4 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to stealing bikes for more than 20 years. The district attorney's office says Christopher McGinnis broke into 3 different apartment buildings nearly a dozen times, each time to steal bikes. He made off with more than 8 bicycles until he was arrested last September.
His MO seemed to be using a crowbar to break into the back entrance of each building, scoping out where the bike storage unit or storage area was, breaking into that storage area, scoping out bicycles, and more or less choosing what he wanted, cutting the chains and stealing the bicycle.
None of the bikes have been recovered, but the DA says it is crucial to report any bike thefts to police. 3 Gresham teenagers have been arrested on attempted murder charges for a shooting in Northeast Portland and also leading police on a chase. Police say they chased a car from a shooting scene on Northeast Rocky Butte Road Wednesday night. The driver allegedly ran red lights before officers stopped them. Police arrested an 18-year-old named D'Angelo Smartlowit, along with a 17-year-old driver and 16-year-old passenger. They say they didn't find anyone hurt at the shooting scene, but one man took himself to the hospital and should recover. And an update on the planned redevelopment on Portland's Lloyd Center. Barnes & Noble announced it'll close its doors on May 2nd after more than 20 years as a tenant. The next closest location is at Cascade Station. We still don't know when the mall will shut down, only that developers say it'll happen before the year is over. Matt?
Another afternoon and evening with great color in the sky. It's fading quickly. That's Mount Jefferson from our Skycam at Timberline. This is our Explorer Tualatin Valley Skycam out at the Reserve Golf Course. Sun has gone down behind the Coast Range right now. And again, we've got a chilly night on the way, but the clouds move in tomorrow. I'll let you know if that means we will or will not see the planetary alignment that's going to be in the sky tomorrow night. We are headed for the 60s, though, even with the cloud cover coming in. So some warm days on the way. Don't worry, though. We still have mountain snow to talk about as we go into next week. Here's a shot right now from our Springs with the Waterfront Skycam in Vancouver, looking back over Portland. Not quite as brilliant of a scene as last night when we had more clouds out there to light up the sky, but we're still hanging at 50 degrees. I'll let you know when we're going to see 60, Christine, in a bit.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Today, a judge sentenced a former Camas Washougal Fire Battalion chief for killing his wife. John Adams is live outside the courtroom in Vancouver with what the former chief said in court today. John.
Yeah, hey, Christine. Kevin West addressed both the judge and the rest of the courtroom today, apologizing for the affair he was having at the time of his wife's death. However, he did not take responsibility for her murder. In a crowded Clark County courtroom, Kevin West, a former Camas-Washougal Fire Battalion chief, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, learned his fate after being found guilty of killing his wife Marcy just over 2 years ago. Before the sentencing, the West's 2 children spoke. Ted West asking the judge for leniency for his father.
His character reflects someone who genuinely cares about others and strives to do what is right. He has always put his family before himself.
Megan West, however, speaking directly to her father, blaming him for her mother's death.
You didn't just take my mom from me. You had the nerve to look me in the eyes days later and ask if I was relieved she was dead.
In January 2024, Kevin West called 911 and told authorities his wife had suffered a seizure and stopped breathing. But an autopsy revealed Marcy had died from asphyxia and blunt force trauma to the neck. The former fire chief was arrested in March 2024. Investigators would later reveal that Kevin West was having an affair at the time of his wife's death and even wrote a letter to his mistress saying 2024 would be their year and that they would be together. West spoke at the sentencing, apologizing for the affair, but not admitting to killing his wife.
I am truly sorry for having an affair. I know that it was wrong, and I should have waited for the divorce to be final.
The judge sentencing West to 25 years behind bars, expressionless as he was taken away in handcuffs. His daughter telling us afterwards she didn't believe the sentencing was enough.
I'm glad he's being locked away, but I don't think he's being locked away for a long enough time. I believe he should be there for the rest of his life.
And Megan West telling us she is still mourning her mother's death, but is ready to start the next chapter of her life now that the sentencing is over. Christine.
A difficult day in court. John Adams reporting. Thank you, John. New at 6, Washington's Department of Licensing is apologizing tonight after callers requesting automated service in Spanish got this instead.
For assistance with scheduling a driver licensing office appointment, canceling an existing appointment, or questions about an upcoming appointment, please press 1.
Maya Edwards told the Associated Press she first discovered the accented voice last summer after her Spanish-speaking husband tried using the option to skip the long wait time for English speakers. She posted a video of the call on TikTok, which then went viral with about 2 million views. Earlier this month, she tried again and found the voice now used a mix of Spanish and English. In a statement to the AP, Department of Licensing apologized and called the issue an unfortunate byproduct of expanding services and using newer AI-driven technology.
It has been a nightmare.
Also in Washington, a judge has ruled that a battleground teacher should be reinstated after a student claimed she called the late Charlie Kirk a Nazi. According to the teachers union, that student later recanted their statements. So the teacher, Amanda Gonzalez, fought for her job. She got an appeals hearing, and on January 23rd, a judge ruled the district should reinstate her. The judge noted that she couldn't find witness statements that were entirely credible, nor could she find that Gonzalez was being dishonest. That was more than a month ago, and Gonzalez is still waiting for her job. She says the district has only offered her financial packages for her to resign.
Well, they're trying to buy me out in such a way that I would lose my medical benefits and my income for something that I didn't do. I didn't do anything wrong.
In a statement to KGW, the district referenced multiple complaints alleging Gonzalez made polarizing statements at school, including a negative comment about Charlie Kirk. When asked why she doesn't have her job back, a spokesperson said they were unable to provide further information.